today we're talking about the sumo elements in Japanese pro wrestling. There's a lot of it, huh? Not just Rikidozan era, but all the way to Kitao era, all the way to Akebono era. Ah, interesting.
Sure, like you mentioned, Akira Taue, even it wasn't just in New Japan; it was all Japan too. There's Taue came from sumo.
Yeah.
Even today, there's the younger guys. Pro Wrestling Noah, Yoshiki, Inamura was from sumo. The All Japan's Saito brothers are from sumo.
Oh, they are former sumo wrestlers. Not high ranking, but
No.
Tall, real tall, good looking two guys. Yeah, brothers. Yeah. But they're very Saito brothers. I hear they're like a really adventurous kind. That they weren't even sumo fan. They just tried sumo wrestling for 10 years when they were young.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they wanna travel the world and see the world. And now they, transitioned themselves into professional wrestler and spent 6 months in America. Now came back and they are full-fledged, like a full-time pro wrestler now. Very interesting. The Saito brothers is somebody to, look for. Yeah, just they would be very interesting. Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned we were talking about Bam Bam and LT at WrestleMania 11, but that also reminded me at WrestleMania later on, if we fast forward, there was a big sumo element one year.
Akebono against Big Show.
Yeah. And that was probably
Sumo
one of the...
Association wasn't happy about it, but after they had a result, because it wasn't really scripted, they really had a sumo match. As big as Big Show was, no match for Akebono if you had a sumo match. Yeah. They put on the mawashi tights like your sling, right?
The sling, the belt with the obi, the belt around the waist.
The whole thing, yeah. And they really had the sumo match. And it was even for a while, but when Akebono got serious, no match. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, right. There was a sumo match during WrestleMania. It was only 10 years ago or so.
I think maybe a little bit more than that, but
a little bit longer. But still, Akebono actually traveled to America and worked, WrestleMania against. It has to be somebody like Big Show,
And that was kind of between his MMA and pro wrestling in Japan.
Right.
Those days.
So he pretty much decided to go with pro wrestling then. Yeah, it was very interesting. So it was like also during very much, the dark era, of professional wrestling in Japan too, though. That the time wasn't the greatest, for pro wrestling. Yeah.
We should also talk about, since we're on the topic of WWE, wrestlers like Yokozuna, not the grand champion, but the wrestler
Rodney Anoa'i. Yeah.
Or
and also Rikishi. Yeah, cousin Rikishi. Rikishi means sumo wrestler in Japanese language, right there. Rikishi. Yeah.
And his gimmick was essentially the original
same
Yokozuna gimmick at first.
Yeah. Right. Was mawashi obi and all that sumo, get up. Yeah.
Banzai drop.
Yeah. And also stink face.
Stink face. Yeah.
Using your butt.
Yeah. Really pulling up the mawashi.
Yeah.
And, Well, and then he kind of turned into.
But that's just the comical, elements, aspect of sumo wrestling that it's like American interpretation of sumo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the sumo is very interesting, So the real sumo tournaments going on right now, and the tradition is still there. The sumo wrestling exists, and professional wrestling, the coexist in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like a completely different, the Kazuchika, Okada, nothing like sumo wrestler,
Of course.
Naito, Tanahashi, none of them, had sumo influence.
But we should mention Chiyono Fuji, because he was one of the first sumo wrestlers to kind of look more like a pro wrestler.
Because he was the very first sumo wrestler who had the weightlifting, the weight training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he adopted.
If people don't know who Chiyono Fuji is, he was a
grand champion for 10 years. Oh, one of the greatest sumo ever. Yeah.
Very popular. Also, if you're not familiar with sumo, he was the kind of basis for the character E Honda in Street Fighter.
Oh, okay. Oh,
He
for the game,
just
game,
as Zangief was.
video game generation. Okay.